And hello, everybody. Welcome to our March AMA, which is also our Mainnet 1-year anniversary AMA. 1 year ago, this past Saturday, the 19th, Chia's blockchain went live. And as you've seen, we did some blog posts and a few other things that kind of celebrated. And today, as part of that, we're going to do a AMA about all things Chia with one of our largest AMA groups I think we've had so far. We have like 5, might have 6 later. We'll see, folks, today. Like our other AMAs, this is a covering everything kind of thing. As the usual things go, please put your questions in the Q&A section in the Zoom chat. Zoom Q&A box. If you put your questions in chat, we may not see them or get to them. Same goes for those of you watching on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube live, great, welcome to have you there. But if you have questions you want to ask and you put them in YouTube chat, I cannot guarantee that we will actually see them for sure. Some people port them over for us to the Q&A box, but not always. We will try to pick from there if we see them and we have time, but the Q&A box in Zoom is the best way to get your questions asked for sure. With that said, let's let everyone say hello. Even though you probably know most of the folks here, we'll let everyone say hello for a little bit and then we'll get started. Gene, you can go first.
That's a 3-year later pandemic. Oops. Sorry about the mute button. I'm Gene Hoffman. I'm President CEO of Chia. I'm responsible for getting us to market and otherwise keeping the wheels on the bus.
Hey guys, this is John Michael Hands. I'm our VP of Storage.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Hainsworth. I'm our VP of Product.
I'm Bram. I do some product and architecture stuff around here.
All right. Alrighty, so we've already got some questions filtering in here. Let's see what we got, and we'll get started. As always, gentlemen on the call, please be sure to tag those questions that you specifically want to answer so I know to send them to you. Otherwise, I'll just surprise you with unexpected questions without warning. I think this is a good question to start with because it's a good overall question. I'm going to throw this at Gene to start and let others kind of pile on. 1 year in, do we see our expectations have been overall met or missed? Has anything really surprised us?
Well, I think certainly the exponential growth of space surprised all of us. If you saw our infographic over the weekend, we were on a pace to literally eat all of the storage that existed on planet Earth, and probably the space station too. It was kind of crazy. So I think that definitely has been way ahead of where we wanted. I would also say that I think we are pleasantly surprised with the total node count. I think we had a sense that it was going to be bigger and better than anything that had come before, but I think it's been a lot bigger and a lot better. I would say on the other side, I'm a little sad that we've had a little slower uptick with some of the American on-ramps, but I think that's going to get resolved here in the near term. And otherwise, I think we're, pretty comfortably on time. I actually take a little pride in looking back at our product roadmaps and other things, and we generally tend to get done what we say we're going to get done about when we say we're going to get it done. And so from that perspective, really happy the first year. The thing that's not as obvious out in the public is that, we went from 21 people on May 3rd to we're just about 70 people right now. And that was a very, very quick ramp up. It's been done very well. A lot of folks here are people who, either knew each other from previous lives and thought they were great at what they did, or were amazing people in the community that just made total sense to, let them focus full time on Chia.
Anyone have anything they want to add to that?
I'd like to say coin price is higher at now than what we expected before coin price started at this time, actually. Which sounds funny to say because it's gone down a lot, but it was crazy higher than we expected when it first launched. And now it is still above what our expectations were that it would be at this time before coin price started.
All right. Anybody else? Alrighty. This one's topically relevant specifically to today. I'll grab this one. Someone has asked us, do we have an estimation on our next hackathon date? Interestingly enough, literally today, like a few hours ago, our new director developer relations started. I haven't actually introduced him to the community on Keybase yet because 2 reasons. One, it's literally his first day and I've been just fire hosing him with so much information that he hasn't, he needs some time to ground his feet. 2, I have been in meetings back to back between him starting and this AMA and I just haven't had time to write up an intro in Keybase for him. But we do have a director developer relations now who is really going to kind of start focusing our developer engagement a lot more focused with some of the stuff that we're doing. And one of the conversations we literally had just this morning was start talking about what the first true hackathon by Chia, not partnered with someone else or run by someone else and sponsored by Chia, but an actual hackathon by Chia, what the first one of those would look like and how we're going to execute that. That's literally a conversation we just had today. I don't have an ETA on an exact time or a time frame, but we're actively talking about it now. We do want to do one sooner than later, and my hope is that it's going to really kind of set a high bar for what the future ones will be like for us going forward. Paul, someone has asked, they wondered if the roadmaps and goal per each term is posted on the official website. It's hard for them to track what Chia companies' goals are each term. When they say term, I guess they mean like dev cycle or sprint, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we do publish our big rocks for a roadmap on our Trello board. We're looking at moving that to a different tool. Trello is not the greatest way of doing product prioritization as well as sharing out your roadmap. So we are going to move to a better tool for that. That likely will live somewhere on our website as opposed to in this separate tool called Trello. But that it'll be coming soon.
But just to make sure everyone's aware, if you're not aware that there is a project board on GitHub, then there is quite a little detail both at the large rocks and at the small rock side. So.
Yeah, the project board on GitHub, I've noticed we didn't use it super religiously for a while, but lately it has become, by process of things kind of dovetailing one into the other, it's become a place where the really near-term, like bug fixes and iterative stuff we're working on kind of shows up. So if folks are really interested in like, what are we currently fixing or addressing from the last release to now, that's a great place to see that too sometimes. Let's see here. We answered. Can you do me a favor, folks? When we answer your question, can you hit the Paul and stuff? Can you hit the clear button so it clears it out? I almost asked you the same one twice. Whoops. Do we have any updated news on wrapped Bitcoin and wrapped Ethereum?
Yeah, I can take this one. So our partner that we announced, our stablecoin USDS, is working on that. Stably has let us know that they've run into some speed bumps with their partner, Prime Trust. From a technical point of view, they're ready to go. In fact, I think this week they are doing internal dog fooding. So it's not a technical limitation. There are some contractual things with their partner that have been holding this up. We're in a holding pattern as much as the community is, waiting to hear back from Stably on where this is going.
Alrighty. Good old age-old question that gets asked quite often. When will Chia be listed on, this time it's Binance?
If you ever want to ask when we're going to list on an exchange, the person to ask is that exchange.
Yeah, that is we should probably start when we announce the AMAs. Maybe we should start doing an AMA announcement with like 10 most frequently asked questions and answers with the announcement each time.
Yeah, the issue is that there are real sensitivities around the various exchanges, and pre-announcing with an exchange can be a very bad thing for everyone involved.
So this one I'll kind of pose towards Gene and Bram both. In this last year, what has been the biggest unexpected or potentially expected blocker that is kind of just surprised us?
I think it was that we needed pools immediately. Our original plan was to start on some of the things we delivered later first, because we thought we'd had, a couple quarters. Now it was, good because there's a bit of a myth that we didn't have pooling ideas at all. If you actually look at our blog, we were talking about how pooling would work in the 6 or 7 months period before. So we weren't going in cold. It was just we had to immediately reorient our focus to that from, frankly, would have been more iteration on offer files sooner, those kinds of things. So that's kind of what flipped around.
Yeah, that was how we managed to ship it 9 weeks after token launched. That would not have been possible if there wasn't a very clear plan already in the works.
Yeah,
but,
and I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think people really kind of miss the fact that we shipped it fast. Like plotting came out like it may have not been there when people wanted it at the launch, but the time we took to actually get plotting to where it was at, not plotting, sorry, pooling, P words, pooling to where it was at was fast. Contemporary chains took 2-3 years for that kind of level of feature growth that we did in like 3 months. And I think people are so accustomed to things coming quick, or accustomed to like certain things coming at start, you forget. You get, it's like the frog in boiling water analogy. You get so accustomed to it, you don't realize how dramatic of a change it really was. I don't think people realize just how much we delivered, how short amount of time for that. And they look at it wasn't there at launch, not how fast we added it. Speaking of the reason why I said plotter, because I was trying to read and talk at the same time. We got a question here on if there's a new ETA for the Bladebit plotter. I know we talked about this a little bit on the storage Q&A a few weeks ago, JM, but this is, that it's not really the same audience, a lot more people here. So what is the status of the new Bladebit plotter? That's really hard to say.
Yeah, and I was funny. I'm chatting with Harold right now. I'm testing out one of the alpha builds on a phase 1 rewrite he did. We've got now much faster phase 1 times than Mad Max, so we're in a little different phase 2 and phase 3 than he has for Mad Max. So we were planning to hopefully have an alpha out here in the next couple of weeks for people to test, for some hardcore community testers, and then a beta here in the next 2 months. So we are making sure that it's going to perform well on lots of different systems. Whenever you have software like this, it's meant to run on everything from a Raspberry Pi to a high-end server. We have to test it on a broad set of different hardware and CPUs, different use cases, and making sure that it performs well on all kinds of disks. But we are doing a ton of tuning, and hopefully we'll be able to share more about the actual official dates soon.
So when you say soon, you mean like what, week? Probably, yeah, about a week, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say we're a couple weeks out. Like, I'm just giving a community message to say.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Test, and then maybe a little bit longer for mainstream people. So.
Yeah, I figured. I'm just trolling you. We have Paul. Do you know the World Bank's plan or roadmap regarding the climate warehouse? The global carbon market, quote, can't come soon enough, according to this person. Like, where are we at on that actually being a practical thing?
Yeah, so the team is actually kicking off a simulation trial with climate warehouse participants right now. Some of you in the community have probably seen the climate warehouse portal that launched. So this is actually in flight right now. The team has been working feverishly to get ready for the beta program. Internally at World Bank, they refer to that as a simulation. And so there's, I think, up to a dozen country participants in that program right now. And once that's complete, it will move to a production release. In parallel, we announced last year a partnership with Costa Rica. Costa Rica is building an open source carbon credit registry, and we want to work with them to help integrate that registry directly into Climate Warehouse. As we start to build that and ship that with Costa Rica, we see kind of like a rinse repeat type of business and onboarding other registries with that exact same set of tools integrated into Climate Warehouse. All open source software. We just want to help registries get there faster, so we're directly engaging in making that happen.
And I'd add, you should stay close because there's one piece of the story we haven't been able to tell yet with Project Asteroids.
Coming soon.
All right. And for those of you sitting at home playing bingo on this, we just got the first comment that my volume was about 10% too loud. So there we go. You can tick that box off on your bingo card. This question, I think, Gene, is a good question for you because it's kind of topically relevant to something earlier today that you did. Someone's asking us, how do we see the regulatory environment developing in the crypto world? Do we see any specific risks that could provide headwinds in corporate partnerships? It's, I think relevant since you just literally did a news interview like an hour ago on this exact subject, basically.
So, look, there's definitely a generation gap around crypto right now. Certain regulators of a much older generation that we all know well find this difficult to deal with. They don't understand it. They think it's bad. The good news is almost everyone around them doesn't feel that way. We saw something out of the White House last week, and that was an executive order that was very much about how do we properly engage with this stuff? How do we get blockchains and cryptocurrencies heading in the direction of fulfilling their ability to restore human rights and give people control of their financial futures? So the good news is that the biggest pieces of activities are that. We certainly saw a single Senate bill from a single senator and a couple co-signees that is frankly a non-starter. It's not something to get worked up about yet, but it is important to know that those kind of levels and pockets of resistance still do exist. We feel very lucky in that because we've taken a much more regulatory aware strategy, that we don't fall into a lot of the pitfalls that other projects are or going to fall into. And from that perspective, it's also really important to get these use cases beyond the crypto casino. Being able to talk about the 170 nations that are going to be coming on board in the next 12 months to the climate warehouse to build a carbon credit marketplace. These are the kinds of uses and the kinds of things that make it far more important that folks like the SEC, folks like some of the senators who are skeptical, take this stuff seriously, because we can show what it can do for overall social good and not just for Bored Apes.
Okay. We have a question in YouTube. There's been kind of a discussion back and forth by a bunch of different folks on this one. I think it's a little bit relevant to kind of touch on, because there's still a fair bit of misinformation going around about the subject, and that's on BLS and the conversations in the last few weeks about what is and isn't an issue. I think people, again, per usual, kind of think it's a bigger deal than it really is. And do you guys want to touch on that a little bit?
No, I was irritated about something and posted in irritation about it on Twitter, and apparently people take everything I say way too seriously. So,
with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah. So, no, the BLS standard hasn't been finalized yet as a standard. Previous versions of it have changes between them for kind of dumb reasons. But what's going to happen is that the final standard is just going to basically support all the old versions that have been gone through. So I spoke to the people involved in it, and that's the resolution of it, that the final standard is going to say all these old things work. And this actually isn't super material to us, because like there's the Chia standard, which is the way Chia works. Like we didn't run the Chia blockchain format through a standards body. We don't need anyone's permission to do that. But for potential compatibility, and just because it's a good idea, in particular for working with hardware, it's good to have sign off on what you're doing from a standards body, is kind of having this clear shelling point for everyone else to interoperate with. But even if we actually were in total violation of the standard, we would still continue what we were doing, and it would still be supported. It would just be more of a headache on our part to get everyone to support it.
Which is a very long way of saying that you should expect hardware support soon.
Cool. Yeah.
Do I have to ask one question? Hey, John Michael, can you tell us what the asset ID of that Chia cat is?
Yeah, this is Moxie.
Is Moxie on the Tails database?
Yeah, somebody needs to make a Moxie coin.
There you
go. So we have a question here about the developing NFT standard. I can give that to you, Paul. Also, I know that Fish is in chat and has volunteered to pop up here, and me have him bring up and answer the question. So either you can handle it, or I can bring him in. Your call.
What was the question?
So the question is basically, do we have any updated information about our schedules and planning for the NFT standard? Folks know that Q2/2022 is basically what we said, but do we have more than we can share in that? Like where it's at, when we can expect it, more than just Q2?
Q2 is still a very reliable date, which is what we said earlier, and that is what we are still working toward.
Is that fiscal Q2 or calendar Q2?
Actually, is it, Gene? Is it both? Is it?
No, it is not. We're actually in fiscal 2023 right now. It's first quarter.
We are still planning on calendar Q2. There's a core team working on NFT right now at Chia. We have, I think, a really unique and differentiated story for NFT. As you just heard from Jay, Efficient on our team has been leading that charge and will continue to lead the charge on NFTs. My team is working closely with engineering right now on building, defining. There's a lot to come. And I think we want to keep the cards somewhat close to the vest about some of the details and what our timing is beyond Q2. So I'd say for now, stay tuned.
All right, thank you. Oh, let's see. By the way, guys, do me a favor and clear off the ones we've answered some. There we go. Here's one. Well, actually, Paul, another one for you. Do we have any progress or information we can share about a mobile SDK for iOS and Android to help folks start building mobile apps on top of the Chia network and not having to do it from scratch?
Yeah, so we have a pretty sizable project that we're just starting to kick off. We've done some initial R&D research on it, but the development work is starting soon. It is a plugin architecture that will solve a number of different problems. Part of that will be a developer SDK that will be portable across all platforms, including mobile, including any dApp that you build, that will make it easy to drop in and build a wallet around it. So we kind of want to solve like 90% of the wallet development stuff for developers with that SDK, including mobile. So I want to put to rest any notion that like Chia is building our own mobile app. That's not our plan. Our plan is to build an SDK and help the community build cool stuff.
Cool. This one, I'm gonna add to this question. So the question is, now that Chia is a year old, what would we have done differently last March, knowing what we know now? And I'm gonna add to that, you can't say ship with pooling.
Well, that would be what I was going to say.
Yeah, so that can't be your answer. Add pooling before we release can't be the answer. So, or I should say add the improved pooling, because there was pooling, just different technology. What would we do differently otherwise?
There's some pretty technical stuff around weight proofs, where there's some things we could have done better.
There's also a couple chips coming that we wish we would have thought about back then.
Yeah, it's always like the thing is, usually you do intentionally put stuff off till later. Is you can't just say, oh well, we would have shipped with X, because it's like, well, there's a trade-off. You have to wait longer to ship if you ship it with X. You can't just magically cram it in there. So it's only like things that you actually kind of got wrong that you might want to actually do differently. And the problem is all the chips that are kind of like soft forky things, I don't think we could have gotten them in on initial release without substantially delaying the release. So all the like stuff where it's like, oh yeah, that would have been nice to have gotten that right the first time is like really super technical and involved to explain.
It's also worth a little history. We originally were targeting a kind of end of 2019 release. No, end of 20 release. I'm sorry, got to get that right. But of course, with new consensus, we knew we were going to take some delays. And so, already we were intentionally delayed from our original kind of course. There was an outside chance January or February could have been that launch date. We all know it ended up being March. It was, as those of you who were here for that, there was a whole lot of win mainnet. So it's very easy to be the guy standing here now looking at it and going, well, why didn't you add all this stuff? And the answer is because you wouldn't have been able to start farming as soon as you already did. So from that perspective, I think we made good trade-offs. There are small things where it's like GAC, like div, which, we're soft forking right now. Please upgrade to 131. But ultimately, we had a pretty good sense of what we wanted to ship. We had a pretty good sense of the things that we would need to do. And, there are just a couple like, I wish we would have exposed random data to the CLVM. We'll fix that. But, it's those kinds of things I think are the closest we can come.
Although that one's also in the category of there's some design work that has to be done with it. It requires like an actual, and that one's also, of the soft forks, that one's probably the cleanest of them to cram in there. So it doesn't really matter in the end. The new consensus was totally worth delaying things a bit for. It's really nice having consensus just chug along without any real weirdness. Like people don't know about the Time Lords. Like they have no idea what's going on. and that's enabled by new consensus, that there's no weird drama about what are the Time Lords up to.
Yeah, and also like the new consensus model is just so much more human. It's like, in about 30 seconds, your transaction's going to go through, and you don't have like deeper reorgs and just all the things that the old consensus was more like Bitcoin and less like a real-time kind of transaction engine. It's pretty cool.
And since you brought up transactions, speaking about transactions, Gene, do you think, pending the successful long-term adoption, that the current transactions per second rates will be sufficient to compete with Ethereum after their merge and eventual sharding? Do we have any plans to increase transactions per second via another avenue, kind of like how ETH might take, or maybe even with some of the stuff that Mad Max is trying to do with his spin-off project?
So there are not currently viable plans for actually putting sharding into Ethereum. ETH2, people don't realize what a pale shadow of its initial projections ETH2 is. After the merge, they're just using the same old like virtual machine and everything that they had before, which is actually kind of a pretty epic failure in ETH2 development to be doing that. A lot of ETH's plans about sharding and stuff are just bad ideas, is a lot of why they haven't really moved forward. On-chain scaling is not a good idea. Like, it's like a massive hit to security in exchange for a not big increase in scaling. You could get maybe a factor of 10 at the really extreme optimistic end of things there. But it's not something that's super material. So in terms of scaling in the future, aside from, well, first off, we already support just a better effective transaction rate than Ethereum, just due to better engineering just in general. And the difference is more dramatic with more complex smart coins. But as we get into more real scaling solutions in the future, step one is to have state channels implemented. So CLVM is very good for implementing state channels. It really does that very cleanly. Although it's a pretty big software development effort to get a whole state channel network up and running. So that gets quite a bit of scaling. And the next tier above that is to have channel factories, which allow for individual, like, resetting of large sets of channels and unrolling of them individually as it goes. There's quite a bit more design work in terms of actually making figuring out how channel factories should really work and be implemented. But that's like very far off in the future that they'll actually be needed. That's a very, right now we don't even have a need for just like a normal payment channel network. So our plan right now, as far as having motivated payment channel development, there's two things that really make sense. One of them is you can open a payment channel directly between a liquidity provider and an exchange, so they can do trades over that. And the other one, so they can do untrusted, atomic trades over that. And the other one is that if you're going to be doing gaming, misbehaves. But the idea is you, generally speaking, open up a payment channel at the start of a session, play your game, finish the session, and close out the payment channel at that point. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah, and I want to bring up that anybody who thinks that the battle for blockchain supremacy is about transactions per second does not understand blockchains. This is a fight that's already been had in Bitcoin against the big blockers. And in fact, we believe that the only way you can figure out the valuation of a blockchain, and we'll be talking about this a lot more soon, is that the one thing that's scarce is block space. And that block space is scarce because you want to decentralize the database and you want it to be secure because it's decentralized. That's what ends up being the thing that your Chia is good for bidding for, is access to that block space. So, when you think about what these are, people with nearly unlimited TPS may have coins not worth very much because access to the block is basically free. What it's really doing is free riding on all the supposed nodes out there, so somebody else is paying the AWS bill. I don't think anybody here really wants 50,000 TPS coming down their cable modem. If you do, give me a call. I have a bridge in Brooklyn. I recently wrote a blog post about this. It's called Tech is Eating Your Fin, and it goes through this from at least a financial standpoint. But we really think that block space is critical. We think that ultimately it's kind of like 80% of transactions will go to layer 2 and 20% will remain on the main chain. But those will be high-value transactions and things like layer 2 settling. So, it's really important to understand that so far, no one has been able to violate the blockchain trilemma. Ethereum is about to violate it by directly trading off being even less decentralized and less secure. And that's the only way they're getting to, less environmentally impactful. So these are not things you can do without making very painful trade-offs that unfortunately go the exact wrong way. This has to be decentralized to actually work.
Alrighty. Got one here, I think it's for me. What are our plans for the holiday token? So we outlined that a little bit in the initial announce from it, but it's possible that folks may have forgotten in time or maybe didn't see the original announcement and found out about it after the fact. So the holiday token has 2 uses. Everybody got 2. One and only one is redeemable for a holiday 2021 NFT. And as you can understand, we don't have the NFT standard yet, as we covered previously with the question with Paul. So when the NFT standard is released and actually exists in a production format, it is. I am not going to commit us to, don't put this on your calendar and then hold us accountable with with our feet to the fire if this doesn't happen. But I'm kind of under the assumption that when we launch that standard, hand in hand with that, we're going to launch the actual holiday NFT, because there's already people ideating over designs and thinking about it. And it's not, the art's not the hard part. The NFT is the hard part. So you'll be able to use one of those 2 cats to redeem for your, someone typing really loud on a mechanical keyboard.
Oh, sorry.
At least it was a puzzle.
It was a puzzle? Okay, yeah, that explains that. So someone will be able to, it was funny because it kept rising louder and louder. Someone will be able to redeem 1 token for that NFT. So when the NFT standard's out and the NFT is made available, we'll kind of say, hey, here's the NFT, it's out now. You can redeem your token and get one of those NFTs. You can do that with 1 token per wallet address. The other token, or both, if you decide you don't want the holiday NFT, 1 or both tokens will be usable as a redemption item on our future swag merch store to actually get merch at a slight discount. There'll be roughly maybe 10% discounts off. The merch store is a little further out. We're finalizing our internal merch kind of swag stuff first, and then building off of that process with the company providing the materials and the systems and tools they're providing for our platform. We are going to build kind of a little light e-commerce site where you guys can get some cool stuff with the Chio logo and stuff on it. Our designers are having an absolute field day thinking up ideas and looks and visual stuff, thematics for all of it. So that's going to come later this year, but it will come this year. It's a little further out, but you'll be able to use them as a discount as well on merch from the merch store. But the NFT itself is basically going to kind of come close with, if not the same time, with the actual NFT standard. And then that also probably answers the question. I had a question here. I just saw that was right after that question, which was, what about a merch store? So, there you are on that, on the merch store. Later this year, soon, TM, all that fun stuff. Gene, do you have any updates for us on Asic Time Lords?
So the good news is we remain on track. We believe we'll have a first version of it in hand around the Thanksgiving to early December timeframe. We got through what were kind of the last major hurdles, which is how much power we're going to draw. And it turns out it looks like we're going to be very good there, and we're going to get about a 2 to 3x speed up over Alder Lake. That's going to be on 3 8mm by 8mm chips. So the actually interesting question left is cooling, but it doesn't look like it's going to be that bad. And I think what the form factor is going to land on is like a USB-C wall wart to the thing that looks like a Raspberry Pi 4 that has another USB port that you plug into a real computer. So it's going to be pretty neat to have all 3 of the VDF clients in there. And we have talked about this in the past, but we've kind of come around to a position of we are going to try to make somewhere between 75 and 150 of them in our initial run, and that is 150 full-time lords, so 3 times the number of VDF clients. And we're going to have an application process. We want to see those get out to academics, pools, people who have already kind of contributed to the ecosystem, so that those things are being run, not just by us, but by others, and being run for either real research purposes or actually securing the chain.
Yeah, because we have a limited run of these, and they are like a thing that you could actually potentially launch an attack with, and something that we want people actually to use defending the blockchain, not to either attack it or to just sit on as a asset that might increase in value. It's probably not going to be just like open to anyone to to buy them. Maybe there'll be like a handful that we actually auction off straightforwardly, but for the most part, you gotta apply if you want to get one.
All right. Little something completely different. I'm not important enough. This doesn't really apply to me, but definitely for Gene and Bram for sure. When the inevitable biopic comes out about Chia, who's gonna play you guys?
I don't think Hollywood is ever gonna make a movie about me. You might remember who I am.
Should we both get the pirate patches out?
I mean, Hollywood probably remembers who you are. They just don't want to acknowledge you.
They know who I am.
Exactly who he is.
Yeah, they just don't want to acknowledge you.
Well, the question is, which came first, the Bram or the Bram? For those of you who don't know, a Bram these days means a certain noise made in the movie soundtrack that's not exactly obvious, but is there to create anxiety.
So the story behind that I heard from someone who kind of knows is it's actually pronounced Brahm, and it's named after Brahms.
Okay.
But it could also be a really bad pun at my expense.
I'm gonna pretend just a really bad pun at your expense because that's really cool that way. I like that.
Look,
Yeah,
my wife would
it
kick
might be intentionally a little bit ambiguous at that point, but the nominal source of it is it's named after Brahms, the composer. And
Interesting.
It's consistent with his compositional style.
Yeah, no, but I would be remiss because my wife would tell you that it'd be a Baldwin.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see it being a Baldwin.
People have thought, depending on age and stuff, that I either look like Anthony Kiedis or Dave Matthews. So
I can see the Dave Matthews. I think for Gene, it wouldn't be too hard to find someone who can kind of look-ish, kind of in his vein. But then the trick is to then turn around and have all the audio actually dubbed by Morgan Freeman.
So often people will say that I look like somebody, and really, usually it turns out that they just don't realize that me and the other person they think I look like are both Ashkenazi.
Someone just said in Zoom that you need to be played by Jason Statham. I am 100% okay with that. That would be amazing. That'd be amazing. Alrighty, so back on track a little bit. I was also just told that apparently my audio is perfect on Zoom. My audio is only a problem on
Somebody was
YouTube.
complaining.
No, my audio is way too loud on YouTube and perfect on Zoom. So that actually tells me something different to look at. But unfortunately, I can't fix it without stopping and starting the YouTube stream. But yeah. Anyways, what milestones, Paul? What major milestones are going to define 2022 for Chia?
So I selected this one maybe as a one of two or three parter. I'm happy to talk about some of the product stuff, but I think Gene and Bram probably want to talk about some of the bigger items as well. From a product point of view, we are making some bets around adoption on the Chia blockchain in a few different swim lanes. One is around green markets, and you've already seen the stuff we're doing with Climate Warehouse and World Bank and Costa Rica. There's a lot more to come. And so we're going to see some pretty significant milestones around carbon credits later this year. We're also making some pretty big bets around DeFi. NFT is part of that. You've already heard us say this is coming in Q2. There are at least 2 AMMs that are currently under development in the ecosystem that we are supporting. We're not building AMMs. We are supporting. Bram is directly involved helping people solve math problems. So those will be really important milestones to see a couple of those things come to market this year. And then the third that I think is a really important milestone relates to the vision that Gene has laid out around bringing real world assets to Chia. And this relates to on-chain securities issuance on Chia blockchain. So those are three really big adoption bets that we're making. We're investing hard into building and supporting. That's some of the stuff on the product side that you're going to see as big milestones at Chia this year. But Gene, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about some of the other kind of non-product-y milestones?
Yeah, one of the big milestones is it looks like we'll have revenue in Q2 for the first time. It will still be, lumpy and hit or miss, but we are absolutely seeing exactly what we expected, which was as we engage with these larger important entities, their view is if they weren't paying us, there'd be a problem. And we agree with them. You want to make sure that you have the right resources to be able to help these large organizations as they get serious about using a blockchain for real, core to their mission use case. That's also going to lead, there's a lot of speculation about our IPO. It is still on an accelerated basis, and I mention it in this calendar year for a reason. It is part of really, just separating us from the pack regulatorily. It is very, very important for people to understand that we are the only blockchain coin other than arguably maybe Ethereum and certainly Bitcoin that is not a security in the United States. And that key distinction, especially when you're talking about enterprise customers and governments and businesses, is going to be really, really important. Plus, unless you've kind of sold software, you don't know how nice it is to be public because it takes a whole host of questions out when you're talking to other big companies about your viability and, whether or not you're going to be there in the long term to support them. So, those are going to be the very big things we're doing. Paul mentioned that in many ways, the carbon market is creating a roadmap and a set of test use cases to show others how to do more classic securities, debt, all sorts of other things that can absolutely trade in AMMs, using offer files. These are the things that are going to make it so you can take the really valuable offline use cases onto blockchain. And one of the things I've really been pushing the team here is it's not just like taking debt and moving it over. It's taking debt and rethinking it a bit. So for example, today, you get paid a coupon about twice a year. And that's totally because it's a complete pain to actually pay out the interest on the debt. Well, there's no reason you can't do that weekly or even daily on a blockchain. And so those are the kinds of conversations we're having with traditional finance to talk about how to actually not just digitize and get the market depth and the reach and the 24/7 market, but to actually significantly enhance that. And Bram?
What?
Big milestones for this year.
Oh man. Well, in terms of just basic product stuff, there is data layer is going to be launched. AMMs are going to be launched. By the end of the year, our actual full node stuff in terms of syncing and just behaving well should be in a really solid state, where right now it has a lot of room for improvement. We'll have launched our internal custody, moved the pre-farm over to something that we're really going to be productizing. After that, going down the list, it starts getting a little sketchier. Hopefully we'll have launched at least one on-chain game by then. Probably a few other things that are sort of vaguely in the works right now as well.
Yeah, and there's something we don't say as much. I want to make sure everybody knows. We Chia, we have kind of two and only two real big goals as the core development team. Goal number one is to make the farming experience and the node operation experience as good as it can possibly get. And that's a long-term, ongoing thing. We are nowhere close to where we'd like to be. The other thing is really building references and standards. So, when we talk about building a game, it's Bram being able to show you exactly how in Chia-list to think through a turn-by-turn game or a card game or those kinds of things so that you can take that as a developer in our ecosystem and take your creativity and not have to worry about how to translate your creativity directly to Chia-list, more understanding what the opportunities are around Chia-list. So, our team over time is going to be doing a lot more of these reference implementations, these standards items, and helping then teach and make it easier to learn Chia-list fundamentally. The other thing, just because Bram did bring it up, we will be moving the pre-farm, a vast majority of it, not all of it, into a special custody solution. We will be outlining that a bit more, but it basically directly enforces our 90-day policy change system, where we have to tell you what we've done before we move it effectively. And we will be announcing windows for security reasons when those will happen. They will not all happen at once. And they will be happening probably in April, maybe in May, just to give you guys a sense of what to expect. We don't want anybody to be surprised that the pre-farm is going from its current custody solution to an actually really great custody solution.
On that, there was a question here. Do we have any updates on the custody solution? Is that kind of your answer for that, or do you want to elaborate?
The custody solution is basically rekeyable multisig, which working on it is really horrifying, not because there's anything bad with it, but because it's horrifying that it's not standard industry practice. Like, what do people do with funds? This is kind of scary that this isn't like the first thing you read about when people are explaining like business logic on custody solutions. So it's a simple rekeying. It's simple multisig with the ability to change what the keys are over time with the different edge cases and processes thought out. With this additional thing that there's a rate limit on it. The rate limit is not for security reasons. It's for business reasons, to reassure everybody that we physically cannot rug pull this, that we can only pull things out at a certain rate, and it will be possible for everyone to audit that. We will make the software available so you can just audit and you will be able to see how much is still in there and when it moves and such. Yes, so that's very much under active development as we speak.
If anyone wants to peek, it's in the internal custody, internal dash custody repo on GitHub.
Anti-rug-pull technology. That would be a great product name for our custody solutions.
I actually many months ago, due to some jokes in Keybase, I actually have the domain rugpool.com. Or was it rugpool.io? Anyways, I have Rugpool.
Yes. So the anti-rug pull technology in it is something that we suspect is not going to be that common of a thing that people need. So we are planning on productizing it, but most likely the productized version won't have the fully productized version meant for everyone to use won't have that part of it so much. It will mostly be the rekeyable multisig with potentially other bits of logic. But we're not 100% sure how it's going to go. We're going to be looking for feedback from people about how they feel about various aspects of the thing. Usually when you have a rate limit, you're doing it for enhanced security. And in order for that to make sense, there needs to be some alternative route that you could use to pull the funds out faster to avoid that. To avoid the rate limit, but we're already having our basic security like turned up to the max to begin with. I suppose we could add in a hook, even in the thing we're making ourselves for a way of subverting the rate limit and just make it so that the one that we're using was just a brick that it was like a hash of like all zeros, which obviously there's no pre-image for. But that's we'll see how that goes. We're always like, as we're dog fooding, we're trying to guess what other people might be interested in, learning some basic stuff about it ourselves. So this is all developing.
All right, got a question for Mr. Hands. I don't like that saying that name like that. I'm never gonna say that ever again. I don't know why. I just didn't like that. I don't know. It didn't feel good coming out. JM, I got a question for you. I think we talked about this during the storage Q&A regarding the circular drive initiative, with folks working on making recycled data center drives available secondhand in refurbished conditions. When can the community expect to see availability of those drives, and what kind of dollar per terabyte are we hoping to aim for the consumer market? This person in particular, Karnak the Magnificent, is looking forward to growing their farm through this.
Yeah, so there's, the first priority for the Circular Drive Initiative was really to bring in people that are SSD and hard drive vendors, hyperscalers, people in the ITAC community and sustainability space, people that are doing this like drive standardization and drive wiping, together to first solve the problem of like, look, way too many drives are being shredded. So we need to solve that problem first. And many of these hyperscalers, it'll look like they first want to look at the reuse internally to their own divisions, right? So they have drives or something that are being used by one business unit that had maybe customer data on them. They securely sanitize them and get them to another business unit. Some customers are much farther down that path and are willing to sell those drives externally. So we already do have a line for refurbished drives from, like, Seagate is one vendor who's offered us distributors that can work with on getting refurbished drives and some used drives today. We did that partnership with IT Renew for using a fully recertified rack. That was one of the things we launched when we announced the Open Compute blog in August. So there already are a couple companies doing this, and we're going to partner with farmers that want to get a hold of those drives, because we want to start incentivizing farmers to get access to these drives. We don't want these to be restricted to channels where you have to buy petabytes at a time and thousands of drives. We're going to try to make sure we do community buys and making sure, all these farmers have access to these drives. But I hear that loud and clear that the community wants access to these, and I'm doing my best to figure out how we do that. And I'm also trying to make it very transparent what the current street price of refurbished drives are and stuff to everybody in the community, to get, so they don't get swindled by resellers on Amazon that are trying to confuse them, and these companies that put the wrong labels in the drive and messed up firmware and all this stuff. So I'm trying to help alleviate some of those concerns as well. But yeah, hop in the farming channel. We've been talking about this quite a bit.
Cool, thank you, sir. Paul, do we have any movement on the decentralized identity solutions? Can you speak any more about our vision for DID on Gia?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked. We are working on DID right now. DID will be part of our NFT standard as well. NFTs will be owned by DIDs in the Chia ecosystem. That is just the very start of DID. Later this year, we will roll out a fully integrated solution for DID that enables, for example, someone to verify that they are an accredited investor by integrating with KYC platforms, so that that wallet can hold a DID that proves that they are an accredited investor. That is the start of a full sort of ecosystem experience with DID on Chia. So we're working on that right now. Bram, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the work you're doing on DID?
Yeah, well, this has been in the works planned for a long time, but the main, the most immediate thing is using NFTs. So an NFT is a singleton, and it has this property that it points to another singleton which is its current owner. So that singleton, parent singleton, is acting as a DID, effectively. The other big chunk of functionality you want on top of this is having permissions, certifications, those kinds of things. That generally is going to involve non-transferable tokens, which might or might not be following exactly the same standard as NFTs. Not really sure about that right now. But those are more along the lines of like proving that they were issued by a particular singleton, and proving that particular metadata was included with them at the time that they were issued by that singleton, and being able to report that out to those who want to have it reported to them, and also likely having them be revocable by whoever it was that issued them in the first place. Or possibly make it so that they, a time limit, so that there's sort of an anyone can revoke kind of clause in there. Things like that. That there's interesting questions around how revocation works. But they're basically, I believe most of the DID functionality people really want is basically NFTs and NTTs.
For something a little fun, do we know amongst ourselves maybe a rough idea how much space collectively the Chia team is farming ourselves? And I think if we're going to answer that question, we probably need to answer it two ways. We need to answer how much are we all farming collectively as a company, and how much are we all collectively farming as a company minus Kiwi?
Well, and also, we're not as a company. So
Sorry, you're right. Not as a company, the company of staff, but we are. That is a point to clarify. I think the person asking us, the way they phrased the question, it's clear on this, but I didn't. When I reread it, I paraphrased. The company is not farming. We as individuals are farming, and the question reflects that. But yeah, we don't as a company farm on any company-owned hardware or equipment. It's all personally bought, personally paid for equipment that we farm on.
So the 2 or 3 smallest farmers on this call are myself, Bram, and probably Paul. After that, it gets much larger.
I'm not terribly
Yeah,
large. I'm like 100. I'm like right at
it's
100
kind of
now.
funny. Yeah, even at Mainnet launch, I was considered a whale, and I'm looking at the stats from the top farmers, top pool addresses, and even on like Space Pool, like their top 20 farmers. I'm not even like close to scratching the surface anymore. So clearly, there's a lot of people in the community that invested quite a bit of money. But yeah, a lot of us that got into Chia, like I got in as a farmer. I joined the company last May, and I was here on Mainnet launch as just an Intel employee and a fan of Chia with a farm. So
What I do think is interesting is over half the company now that has joined came to the company because we were active in the community. So obviously we were farming, but by and large, most of us weren't really whales, at least compared to the actual whales out there. I think a lot of us are a bit more conservative.
My wild guess would be that the sum across all employees is probably like in the 5 to 10 petabyte range.
Well, if you take Kiwi out, it's in the 4 or 5 petabyte.
Yeah,
range.
Yeah.
If you put Kiwi in, then we're like 10.
Kiwi's got a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he just could have Katamari balled someone else's farm too. So
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. I'm going off old information about what he had when we first launched. So
yeah, but to be it's funny. Paul and I talked. We had a long chat about the farming roadmap and farming and plotting it, and some of the things we're doing for the farming community. And it's like obviously I'm living and breathing this stuff. I'm using all the tools. I'm farming. I know all the harvester tool. I know a lot of the limitations because I've hit almost every single bug as we've started scaling. Scaling the software from all the early versions. As our engineering likes to call them, whale problems. Whenever I hit a bug that's like not a bug on that other people were seeing, they like to. But no, really, it's good. It gives us a good perspective, having obviously deep insight into like what are the communities doing with the products.
And also for those of you who are small farmers, I'm like barely 15T, and I'm in the 10 Gia club.
yeah, it doesn't actually take a lot to get a 10 at this point. Yeah. Gene, this one's for you, whether you want it or not. It's a question we are all tired of discussing, but I do think 1 year in on this 1 year anniversary type AMA is a good time to retouch on it, whether we want to or not, if you're exasperated from the question. But what's the purpose of the 21 million pre-farmed Chia, and what are we going to do with them, and are we ever going to release them in circulation?
So the purpose of the 21 million free farm Chia is to make it very easy for us to raise fiat capital, to pay developers and everybody you're seeing on this call and all the people we continue to pull out of the community, as well as pay out grants to continue to build a developer relations team and start buying pizza and beer for all of you all around the world. That's coming. The pandemic has held us off on that, frankly. And so the goal here is, and it's part of the public company strategy. If you've never been close to public company, it may not make as much sense, but public companies can raise money once public very easily. And so fundamentally what the pre-farm ends up being is this long-term asset. And the way the company's valuation is built is that asset plus the future of our cash flows from revenue from the business. And so if you're an investor, you get kind of two things. You get coin price and you get the services business that we have to build around coin price to help people actually adopt. Ultimately, as this market gets really rich and thick, like were we, a top 5 cryptocurrency, we will start dividending those coins to shareholders. So like once a quarter, everybody who owns a share of stock might get like 0.01 Chia, right? And the idea here is it's a completely fair way to distribute it. Ultimately, what this looks like is that at the kind of 50-year mark, or even a 30-year mark, I think it is, it's like 50% of the coins are out in farmer hands. 25% of the coins went to private investors and the investors that took us public, and 25% stayed with the team and the development folks here. And it's a pretty good way to do it. Now, ultimately, what we're going to be doing is drawing down that pre-farm out via the shareholder base. And so if you think the pre-farm is large and valuable, you should be a shareholder as soon as we get public, because you will have a claim on it and you will actually start getting paid in it.
I have to say, this is not something we have to be apologetic for. There's this very, very weird attitude in cryptocurrency investment circles that it is completely unethical for people actually building things to not give a massive airdrop to and free money opportunities to investors who are just putting money out there, while it being extremely unethical for people who are actually doing work writing actual software to make any money themselves. That is crazy. We do not live in a communist country. That's not how this works.
Look, 2 points to go with that. Like, it is a moral abomination that Bitcoin core developers have to beg for freaking money. Like, if you're a Bitcoin whale, you should be mad at yourself. And look, the other thing is, like, great example, Bladebit. You know, Harold had a day job, and I am really ecstatic that we were able to use some of that money we raised from the, selling equity in our company against that pre-farm to give him a full-time job writing Bladebit. And there's lots more. I think our last 8 major hires are all from the community. And, these are people who got to, like, stop working for power companies or consultancies and, like, do Chia all day, every day. And it's exciting and fun. So look, that's why we did it. We think it's a better way to make sure that the people who are putting the blood and sweat in are rewarded, but are rewarded at the end, not at the beginning. And that's been one of the biggest problems with a lot of these crypto projects, is that the billions of dollars flowed in before anything was written. So what is exactly the interesting reason to stay around and build something? Well, not much. But here, your equity is vesting, and you want to be there so your equity has the most value it can have at the end of that vest. And that's important.
What it all really comes back to quite often is the same conversational topic, in that we are not your typical blockchain technology company. We don't do things the way the rest of the industry does, because we don't believe in, it's easier to beg forgiveness and ask permission. We don't believe in break every rule and regulation until someone tells you to stop at your convenience. We are doing things above board, by the book, like a proper corporation. And I think that just confuses people. The space isn't accustomed to seeing that, and they don't know what to do when they see it.
Well, and as an important statement, we don't make enough. Which is, we're doing this because we want to secure, like, billions of people's human rights, the control of their wealth. Like, we're doing it because this technology can change the world. And the best way to do that is to pick your battles exceedingly wisely. We want to have regulatory battles about things that are over the horizon for most every project right now. And by being compliant with the easy stuff, we get a very different seat at the table. As a public company with, SEC reporting and everything else, when we want to have a conversation with the SEC about decentralized exchange and whether that meets the Exchange Act, and, whether the Exchange Act is modern enough to handle the way DeFi actually works, we want to have the good, clean hands and the real use cases to have an actual conversation, such that those regulations become the kinds of regulations that we all will live with, like, and everything work. There's the let's take everything super pure and not have it very adopted. Only about 20% of Americans use cryptocurrency, and do they use it? Maybe not. We need the other 80%, and the way you do that is to take the same technologies and the same core beliefs, but put the sport coat on and make them believable and make them compliant enough, and drive them forward to get everybody on board.
Great answers to all that. Bram, got one for you, because this has come up. It's been asked in the Q&A box twice. It's come up in Zoom chat, and it's come up in YouTube chat more than once. Folks want to know what puzzle you're working on.
Oh man,
we can hear it, so we all want to kind of know what it is.
The one you just heard me fiddling with. This one, it's this one here. This is called Ziggurat. Actually, a friend of mine is selling them right now. This is a relatively new one of mine. It's for those who know these things, it's a binary burr that doesn't have a cage on it, which is a very unusual concept. I believe this is the first ever binary burr with no cage, which has some interesting mathematical basis to doing that. It's like not the usual gray code that almost all binary burrs are based off of. But the funny thing about this is it does in fact come apart just completely. These just totally separate from each other. And there's actually no set number of pieces in the puzzle. You can just, the more pieces you have, the more you can put together, and just the number of steps necessary to put it together goes up exponentially with the number of pieces that you have.
Interesting. Again, when it comes to puzzle stuff, just over my head, my brain breaks. But as I can testify, I was given a puzzle of Bram's design as a gift this weekend. Very, very simple, basic one. And it kept me entertained for the entire hour and a half flight I was on this weekend. I finally solved it right before we landed. But that entire hour and a half I spent.
That one is not very simple, actually. That's one of the harder ones.
Oh, really? Then I don't feel that bad. Because I thought I was struggling.
Is there any way somebody can buy that one?
Yes. There's we should just post a link to the form for ordering them.
Yeah, if you have a link to your
Random.
friends thing, post it either in the Zoom call chat right now, or after the call we can post it in general on Keybase. One of us can, yeah.
Yeah.
So another question we got here is, I like this one. I like this one a lot. Will Chia assign country representatives from the community to host local meetups with pizza and beer? I really like this, and I'm going to say yes, no, but yes. What I mean is I'm not going to go out and assign regional representatives, but I want to put together a program of some kind where you can come to us and say, we want to do a meetup, we're going to do an event, we're going to do like a monthly gathering, we're going to do a quarterly gathering at this bar in this city. And we can basically say, okay, that area does not have anyone else doing these things who's actively doing it with support. You're new and doing it. Do a couple. We'll keep an eye on you, and we'll give you stickers, pins, something as we have more merch and swag. We will do we can't go out and pick up the bar tab for 75 cities across the world for a monthly drink night. We can't do that. Our CFO would jump onto this call and barge in right now and shut it down. But what we can do is find little ways to support you guys. So I do like that idea, and so yeah, we'll put something together where basically you can sign up and be like a community contributor and say, I want to organize a get together on a monthly or semi-monthly, quarterly kind of basis, and we will find ways to give you guys a little bit of support to help kind of spur that growth. 'Cause I do like the idea. There was a community organized event in San Francisco not terribly long ago that was kind of self-organized and so put together by the community, and it just happened to be the same week that we had several people in town for meetings, and so a lot of Chia folks went, and it was fun. It's awesome, and it's cool seeing those in our own backyards, and even more seeing them in other cities. So yeah, we'll work with you guys on putting together something like that.
And before you move on, we're going to be in Miami at Bitcoin 2022 Miami, and then Consensus will be sponsoring the Coin Center dinner in June in Austin. So we will certainly probably have at least a get together.
I was going to say, are you basically implying then there might be a happy hour during Bitcoin Miami?
I'm certain that we will take over something and invite everybody.
Awesome. I like that plan a lot.
The one guy who can tell the CFO that we're spending the money.
There you go.
His ears are burning on the way to the airport.
Gene, what are the chances of us ever having a hard fork?
We are going to try really bleeping hard not to have a hard fork. I would say it's not perfect, but there's no good reason we see anytime soon to have a hard fork. Arguably, fixing the K32 may be better to do a hard fork than going K32 out, but I'll hand it over to Bram to kind of finish that statement.
If we wanted to deprecate K32, that would be in favor of K33 and up. That would be a very simple soft fork, actually.
I was actually thinking that we'd want to, hard fork the plot filter first.
Oh, yeah, that could happen. I mean, the unlikely, because it looks fine right now. The hard forks are things like if quantum computation breaks the VDFs and you want to move to a new VDF or things like that. That would have really no practical consequence on the running things, and would make sense to be a hard fork. But that's way in the realm of science fiction right now. We're intentionally designing it so that it would require some pretty painful community consensus to get any hard forks in there. Intentionally so. That's kind of the point of the exercise, and probably getting more painful over time. Now we have this reasonable shelling point of what the plans are basically around me right now. But I like to think that the main reason why they continue to be around me is because I'm being reasonable. And if I were to attempt to cram some really ridiculous hard fork down everyone's throat, there might be just like general uproar and and revolt going on around everything around it, because it would be very, very destructive. So I am not the sort of person to do that sort of thing, and we are intentionally setting it up so that's getting like ever harder over time as the ecosystem and community get larger and larger. But yeah, it turns out you can do a lot with soft forks. There's things where you really want hard forks are really like on the like when you're actually changing your consensus algorithm, right? Like those kinds of things. When you're like actually redoing history, like the DAO hack undo on Ethereum, which we're definitely not doing anything like that. So those are, those are when hard forks can come in. Now, you could, in principle, have like really crazy soft forks, because there are soft forks that are kind of mental. And I guess like there are theoretical possibilities, like if there was some standard, like some standard format of puzzle that we were using that it turned out there was some really severe security problem in it, there's a theoretical possibility that we could introduce a soft fork that was kind of a hack job that just kept anyone from exploiting that that security problem. Thankfully, nothing even vaguely like that has been hinted at so far. But yeah, you really prefer not to do that kind of thing. And when you do it, it's like super targeted. It's like, here is the thing that we are fixing with this, and making it happen. So right now, we're doing like a soft fork, like really just a bug fix soft fork around like the semantics of division and a few other things like that. And we have kind of in queue of soft forks to support like a randomness oracle on chain and foliage commitments to past blocks, and adding in hooks for zero knowledge functionality into CLVM. Those are soft fork kind of things, and those are all like very, very general, generic pieces of functionality that aren't like, oh, this partner asked for this thing and we're doing it. It's like, we don't do that kind of stuff.
Two things there. The chip process is going to be where you're going to start seeing that sort of stuff. It's intentionally pretty rigorous for everyone, community and us. And it's designed to make sure there's time for things to bake, to converse, and then try to hopefully get to a broad consensus. And the second thing is, Bram did something amazing here, which is when we ship transactions on May 3rd, we really don't have to change anything to continue adding new functionality at the GList layer. It is a generalized functional language, and therefore, when customers are wanting things from us, what they really want is GList. They may not know it, but that's actually what we're going to be delivering them.
Hopefully, most of the time, they want one of our standard offerings that we've already built on top of GList. So We're getting a suite of those together.
So this has come up in reference as a kind of casual mention several times in this call now. I'd like to think a lot of people in this call, and those who will be watching the video on the archive later will probably know this. But for those who might not, do you want to give anyone want to give a really quick 1 minute or less synopsis on what we mean when we say chips?
Sure. A chip is like a Bitcoin improvement protocol proposal. Pardon me. This is the Chia improvement proposal. These are for improvements that would be significant. Kind of hard to define significant, but it would be, if you've got this RPC needs a change, we'd have a pull request. You don't need to create a chip. But, if we're adding things like the ability to do ZK rollup data coming down from BLS signature library, that's a significant change, and we're going to have a chip for it. The NFT, I believe, will have a chip. It's kind of the last one that wasn't really ready, that existed before the chip process was ready to go. From here forward, those kinds of standardized items and those kinds of larger soft forks would have a chip, and everybody would know that chip's coming. We did some of the effort in a chip with the div soft fork. Bram definitely went into the community and circulated around the options and tried to get some sort of consensus there. But this is a bit more formal way to do it, and a bit more obviously public and tracked way to do it.
Yeah, in the past, there's been a lot of Bram does whatever he feels like. I have done a lot of talking to the community and have been receptive to people's feedback on things, like quite notably putting in the hook to enable pooling protocol before we got our consensus out. There is a hook in there that was done as the result of community feedback. It's not the hook that anyone else would have designed, but it was in there, and it did in fact enable a pooling protocol. So moving forward, for basically anything that involves any consensus change or extension, that's going to go through chips. Likely at some point, not yet, we're still just doing what we feel like, but at some point in the future, changes to the standard wire protocol between full nodes and wallets and full nodes, those will get chips, but not yet. We're changing them a little too fast for that still. And also standardized on-chain libraries like NFTs or data layer, things like that. At some point, those will start being chips. But we're kind of, maybe there'll be one for NFTs, probably not for data layer. If we do one, it'll be kind of retroactive. And I'm guessing if like I personally hack together a game, an on-chain gaming implementation that will not be on-chain, or that will not be in a chip, at least in its initial form. That will be a, hey, everybody check this out kind of a thing. And then maybe make a chip for it afterwards, after there's some feedback and people have played with it and there's some discussion and such. But yeah, we're kind of moving towards greater formality over time as it becomes just viable and necessary to do that. So when you're first starting up, there's a lot of just we got it together and we're pushing it out. And then as things become more coherent and are naturally slowed down anyway, and start having much more of a real process for doing things.
So we have just under 15 minutes left. I'm going to grab a few questions here and there that I think are interesting, but if there's questions that have come in that we haven't gotten to yet that any of you guys really have a burning desire to answer, just speak up and we'll get to those specifically. Otherwise, I'm going to keep picking a few here to kind of fill in these last few minutes. With that said, I got one for you, Paul. Why did we decide in 1.3 to build the light wallet in the way that we did and not continue with the existing structured format of the wallet we had previously?
Yeah, so it turns out people want it. People want their wallet to sync faster. And so this is a natural direction for us to move toward to support what people want in a way that's still secure, decentralized. And so expect to see that get even better. What you see in 1.3 with wallet syncing is pretty good. We know from the community that there are issues for farmers who have really big wallets, either a lot of transactions or a lot of coins. There's optimizations to come there that will make that faster. But generally speaking, turns out people want their wallet to sync really fast. We're going to apply that same thing continuously to Node as well, so that Node syncs faster. There's a lot of performance work that we want to do to optimize that. We want people to be able to farm sooner so that you don't have to wait for your full node to sync for a day and a half or 2 days before you can start farming. So there's a lot of those performance improvements to come. The move to support Light Wallet is just the first of it.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, we have extensive wallet refactoring coming up, very much centered around a kind of plug-in based architecture, so that new functionality can be added to, new smart coin functionality can be added to the wallet without every single thing digging its tendrils deep inside a monolithic code base, which is kind of the way it is right now. That's going to be a major project, so there'll be a lot of stuff. But there's also going to be a lot of improvements in sync time and just general performance everywhere.
And speaking on wallets, continuing that to another question, do we have any plans to release an official Chia-provided view-only wallet that uses the new observer addresses?
Yes.
Yes.
It won't be a distinct wallet at all, actually. It will be the same thing, but it just won't have the private key. So the basic idea is the exact same code base running the exact same thing. And if you want to convert it from being an observer to actually being able to do stuff, you just give it the private key, and it goes, great, now I have the private key, and without having to do a new sync or anything, it can start moving forward and doing stuff.
All right.
Possibly even having like a setup where it's normally running as an observer, and it has the it has the private key encrypted locally, and you have to like enter in your passphrase in order for it to decrypt it when you actually want to do something, or enter an YubiKey. That kind of functionality there.
Thank you. Gene, not sure why you picked answering this one, but I'm going to give it to you because you did, because I want to see where this goes. The question is, what's the sculpture behind Bram? And Gene has elected to answer this question, so I'm going to give it to Gene to answer.
I hit the wrong button. I thought that was the puzzle.
No, too late. You have to answer it now. No, sorry. No, Gene, you have to answer it. You picked it.
Well, okay, so you can look through our AMA archives, and he'll have talked about this about 9 months ago. Good luck.
Yeah, I still need to get it fixed. On my to-do list it's having issues. I think it's I think the wood has swollen a little bit, which is causing it to not work properly. But it's a kinetic art sculpture, but it's not working right now, is why you don't see it kinetically moving and hypnotizing everyone. One of these days I'll get it.
Wait, I will admit, when it's been on in the past during either live streams or internal calls, it's definitely mesmerizing and a little distracting. Not necessarily in a bad way. It definitely is mesmerizing.
Hey, Bram, what words did they Google to try to find it?
This is, well, if you search for kinetic art sculpture, you can find it. This one is called Kinetic Wood. I'd have to go look up the name of the vendor that I got it from.
Okay. Got one here for you, Paul. The GUI, specifically updating it. Do we have any thoughts about streamlining the process? Right now, you just install Chia on top of Chia and you get the new Chia. Do we have any plans or any considerations or any thoughts around making it so that there's a check in the client to do an update, and you can just update from within the client, and a smoother onboarding process of the update and what the update brings to you and what's going to be new and added, and kind of introducing people to the new features when they do an update?
Yeah, so we're probably never going to have Microsoft Update Tuesdays. The possibility of improving that upgrade experience for people, for sure. I would say it's part of a broader initiative around getting us to one-click farming, which is to say a farming experience designed primarily around consumers that enables us to scale up our node count and number of farmers by an order of magnitude by making a super consumer-friendly experience. We know that our farming experience today is primarily around early adopters, and to get to that next order of magnitude up, we really need to build a very consumer-friendly experience. So that's where you're going to see efforts like, better update experience start to emerge, is around that project for one-click farming.
Cool. Gene, this one seems like a loaded question from someone named Alan. I don't know if you've arranged with them to ask this question of you to prepare you for it, but considering we've been down this path just recently with a blog post, does the best technology always win?
So I posit in the last 40 years, the best technology has always won. I certainly say that you can completely not execute and make good technology fail, but really good technology, basically executed, is very hard to beat. This is software eating your world, and software eats software. If you really want to get into depth of what I think about it, you can take a look at the blog post I posted last week. But the one thing people talk about as the best technology not winning, they're usually talking about VHS versus Betamax, whether they know that or not. And the funny part of that story is, and it's very relevant to blockchains, Beta didn't win because it wouldn't be licensed and therefore wasn't permissionless. VHS was actually made by multiple manufacturers. It was a kind of group standard. Anybody could enter the market. And so doing, they got to being able to hold a movie faster and got to being able to hold a football game faster. And so depending on how you define best technology, I think Americans cared about movies and football more than they cared about a 1-hour clip and much better video.
Yeah, Betamax also, like, the tapes were only 90 minutes long, so they couldn't hold most movies on a single tape, which is kind of ridiculous.
Actually, I had a Betamax player growing up because my dad was in broadcast journalism, so we had both, and yeah.
So I saw somebody in the chat go, Microsoft made the best tech fail except for the web browser.
I have comments about Microsoft and tech. We won't go there. What happened to that cell phone of theirs? Oh, there was Zoom. Anyways, this one I want to talk about because I both want to have answers for it, and I also want to kind of challenge some of the assumptions that are made in the question. GitHub issues and discussions is a bit of a mess, and replies from the team is not very frequent. Can we give some dedicated moderation to remove the cruft, especially from discussions where there's a lot of the same newbie questions? And are there any plans for an official forum like the developer forums we recently released? So I would say GitHub discussions are maybe slightly a little messy, but that is by design because Chia has a limited number of human resources who are not engineers working on actually building our technology. We are a bigger than fledgling company, but we are by no means a large corporation. We have a limited number of resources doing things. When it comes to providing direct support to the farming community, to the non-developer community, we have an amazing team of some really amazing people working on that under me who are doing a really kick-ass job, but there's a finite number of them and available times. And there are a lot of different outlets they have to help provide support on. And try as we might to focus people in different directions, people sort of just go wherever they want sometimes. It's often why you'll see in general chat people asking for support, and people are like, no, go to the support channel. And like, oh, but I'm already here in this channel. I was like, go to the support channel, please. You know, we're constantly trying to put people in the right directions to get them the best support we can give them through the right methods. But people do tend to just kind of pop up like whack-a-mole in some odd places. So we do what we can to provide that support. Keybase support is really great for real-time interactive troubleshooting and fixing problems and kind of open flow conversations with both our internal experts and other community experts. GitHub issues is where we route people who are having what actually might be a bug or a problem with our software. The thing with GitHub issues is either anyone can open an issue on their own or only we can. There's no such thing as a tier between that. So people do make issues for really dumb stuff sometimes. They'll open a bug report because of a technical problem they have with something they did, either because they don't understand the difference between a bug report of their not doing and an issue of their own doing, or because they see it as the only way to get a direct response from us, which is not true, but they see that as the right way to go. We try to move those off of issues into discussions or other places very quickly. We have a finite number of humans. They move issues when they can. I think at any given point, we only ever have, for the last 4 to 5 months, we've never had more than 70 to 110 issues open at any given moment. I would like to think that's a sign of some decent curation of our issues. So I would argue they're not really a mess. It's just at any given snapshot, there might be 3 or 4 things that don't belong there, but they are taken care of in a timely manner. I would believe so. I kind of would at least argue that they are. The discussions are where people who have a tech support need are moved to, because the expectations of the discussions is, as it's asked here, are we going to have a formal forum? That is what discussions are. We don't want to spin up multiple forums. There's community forums, there's Reddit, we have our developer forums. Again, finite number of humans, finite number of places we can provide support. I'd rather we have the best people we have providing help, providing them in the places that we can direct people to already and not spreading them too thin. As we grow as a company and have more opportunities, we might add other channels. But the GitHub issue discussions is kind of the place for those. That basically is our forum. Moderating that is tricky. It's a community-driven thing. We do rely on community members to help moderate that and to support other people and provide answers to other people. Yes, 40 people asked the same question about the same problem. There is no silver bullet to that problem. If someone out there knows how to stop 50 people from asking the same support question over 3 weeks on a open forumed community about a piece of technology, let us know, because you are going to help us win a Nobel Peace Prize for developers everywhere in the world who have dealt with this for 35 years. The silver bullet to that problem does not exist. Just ask the multi-million-dollar companies who compete with each other to make forums and developer tools and communication hubs, all competing to be the one-size-fits-all solution that no one is. We are trying. A lot of people try. It's a little rough in that area, but it's we're doing the best we can with what we got, and I think we are on par and sometimes ahead of, and treading water with our contemporaries in our space who do the same thing. I have dealt with community support for a video game that has 147 million concurrent players at any given moment. And I would say that company did not do it any better than we are. Sometimes different, sometimes the exact same way. So if people have ideas on what we could be helping to do differently, we would love to hear it. But we do try in those areas to do that. That's kind of where we're going and how we're trying to shore those things up and add more people and resources to them. I would say they're not perfect, but I would also argue that they're not a complete mess and unusable. But we're happy to get feedback on how we can maybe do that differently.
Somebody needs to send Jay a cocktail.
What?
Somebody needs to send Jay a cocktail.
Oh. Yeah.
A high level thought about these things. We're working on making it so that each of our new releases is rock solid the minute it's released. We're not there yet. We're going to have a big initiative to dramatically increase the amount of internal testing that our things have in our whole test processes and test setup. So right now we're not, so we don't have auto update because number one, it's important that old versions get done, and we don't want the liability of being responsible for some law enforcement thing coming and telling us we need to auto update everyone to something really unpleasant. But number two, because we're not yet at the point where we feel particularly comfortable telling everyone that they should just download and install the new version immediately when it comes out. So we're working on improving that. We're not there yet. But hopefully the amount of support requests we have in the future will go down dramatically as our overall software quality goes up.
And just so everybody's clear, we do expect to have a notification of a new upgrade thing sooner or later. But because of this, it's not as high a priority versus getting it so that our release process is great.
Yeah, I think auto updating is probably something we never want to do when we're talking about people's money and blockchain technology as a whole. I don't think that's something anyone,
It's bad enough that there's a way that would alert people to update.
Yeah. With that said, we're basically at time. Is there any closing thoughts or comments or specific things any of you guys would like to address?
Well, I'll just say it's Monday after we had an event on the weekend. So if you're wondering why we're all kind of like in day-to-day, it's most everybody recovered from a hangover yesterday. It's been an amazing year. Like, we have some really cool stuff we're about to pull back on. Cannot wait to tell you guys about asteroids, and I think that's finally here. There's going to be a lot of activity between now and the summer, and it's really exciting. We literally are seeing one of our customers actually is like, you are going to charge us, right? And that's exactly what we thought would start happening. When people are starting to take this seriously for core mission stuff.
When people get nervous, you're not charging them money to work with you. That's a really cool thing.
That's exactly what you want, and that's exactly where we're at. So, it's an exciting time, and, we got some more cool stuff. You've seen, I think, the first versions of a lot of things. There's people saying, hey, I'd love to be able to buy a stable coin. We want more and better stable coins too. We want more assets that are both on-chain and obviously off-chain too. We think that taking off-chain assets on is going to be pretty darn cool. And we're going to give you guys a lot more examples and exemplars so that you can go take some of the things we hand you that may even show you how to do the regulatory path too. And so you could go do fun things that are completely unthought of by us, but will be really creative in using the tools we're giving you at the baseline.
Anybody else? Any closing thoughts?
I'll add one last closing thought. It's important that the Ukrainians were able to escape with Bitcoin, but we can make it better. We can make it easier to use, better custody, make it so that you don't lose your key, make it so that you don't care, and that you really can control your wealth. It's an important thing.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Well, thanks everyone for hanging out today and answering questions. Mondays are hard to get people's schedules aligned on usually because it's very busy days for us. So the fact you guys had made time for today is really great, especially considering the long weekend that most of us had. A lot of us just got off flights like last night or this morning. So thank you for that. Thank you everyone who came and asked questions and hung out and watched this and was on YouTube or on the Zoom call, and all the people who are going to probably watch this. We have learned, I'd say we get maybe 5 times as many people watch the video after the fact than tune in live. So thanks to all you as well. Thanks everyone for taking part in this, and it's been an awesome year. For me, it's not been an awesome 10 months. It's been awesome, and I'm really, really excited for what our next year is going to look like.